everybody. It's Monday morning. What do you say? Hope you had a great weekend, had a good chance to relax, recharge your batteries, and are ready to go this Monday morning, November 4, with lots to talk about here on the Bill Press Show. Coming to you live from our nation's capital on Free Speech TV and, of course, on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. Another week, another shooting, sadly. Yep, on Friday morning, out in Los Angeles, a lone gunman with an assault rifle walked into LAX, opened fire, killing one TSA agent and wounding several others, threatening passengers running through the terminal before he was gunned down by LA airport police officers. He has now been charged with murder, 23-year-old from Pennsville, New Jersey. How many more of these assault rifle attacks will it take before we do something to ban them forever? In other news, Rand Paul in a little hot water this morning, accused of plagiarism because it's been shown that he lifted entire portions of movie scripts and also from Wikipedia in his speeches and his books without giving them credit. Rand Paul says, anybody who accuses me of that, I will challenge them to a duel. That's how they do things in Kentucky. And critics of the Affordable Care Act are still trying to make a big deal over the fact that some people, a small percentage of Americans, will be forced to lose their health care plans and buy another one. But of course, those plans were not worth a damn in the first place. President Obama campaigning over the weekend for Terry McAuliffe. Lots going on this Monday morning, so stick around right here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Monday morning, President Obama says Terry McAuliffe got to elect him to show the nation how bad and how extreme the Republican Party has become. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? It's Monday. How about it? Monday, November 4. And this is the Bill Press Show. We had a good weekend. I hope you all did too. And are ready to jump into the news of the day here this Monday morning. We are coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio. Here, our little radio factory and TV factory and book factory right here on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. Our eye on the big stories here in the nation's capital and what came up on the Sunday shows yesterday. Also, our eye on what's happening around the country, especially horrific incident and event at LAX, another not mass murder, but another murder, but using an assault rifle at LAX on Friday, and what's happening around the globe with more and more world leaders now expressing outrage and angst and disappointment at the news that the United States has been spying on up to 35 different world leaders. We've got it all covered. We'll bring you up to date on the news of the day, bring you our guests to talk about the news of the day, and most importantly, open up the phones and the websites so you can give us your comments. You know how to do so. On the phone, it's 866-55-PRESS. That's the toll-free number. On Twitter, it's at BP Show. On Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. So whether you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station to this morning radio show, or whether you're watching this radio show on Free Speech TV or on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. We welcome you to the program. Look forward to your comments. And we say good morning to the team here this morning. Peter Ogburn made it in.
Happy Monday, sir.
From the suburbs.
Yes, indeed.
Nice to have you back.
Happy to be here.
With Alicia Cruz making it from farther away. She and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, both on the highway. They had long commutes.
We assemble from miles around, Bill.
I know.
From all corners of the DMV.
And I've got the longest commute of all.
Right. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
Well, over the weekend, there was a lot of politics over the weekend. As I mentioned, President Obama, right across the river in Virginia, stumping for Terry McAuliffe. Meanwhile, where'd he come from? Mitt Romney popped up on, who cares, on Meet the Press yesterday.
This weekend you were supposed to set your clocks back an hour. Some people set it back a full year.
I guess that's what they did.
Because Meet the Press had Mitt Romney on, yeah.
Good point.
Too far
I hope
back.
you all remembered that, by the way. This is our favorite time of the year, of course. That's where we gain an hour. It's so good, but we'll lose it coming next spring. Anyhow, Mitt Romney on Meet the Press, he was asked, so who's your list of Republican contenders for 2016?
Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio. I mean, there's a long list of very capable people, but Chris Christie stands out as one of the very strongest lights in the Republican Party.
Paul Ryan, he puts number one, of course, because he picked him as his vice presidential running mate. Ain't going to happen. But notice, Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie. Who's missing from that list? Yeah. Teddy baby, Ted Cruz, where are you? No, Mitt Romney said he's not much of a contender. Certainly different kind of politics than Mitt Romney had. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, out in Iowa, New York Senator Chuck Schumer said it's a done deal.
2016 is Hillary's time. Run, Hillary, run. If you run, you'll win and we'll all win.
I don't know. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm a big Hillary fan, and I supported Hillary in 2008 over Barack Obama in the primary. But, we tried this in 2008. It was a done deal in 2008. Hillary was going to be the nominee. No doubt about it. She deserved it. We've heard all that, right? She deserved it. She was the most qualified. She was the most experienced. It was her turn. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody else get out of the way. It's going to be Hillary. It's got to be Hillary. Now, 8 years later, we're hearing the same thing.
It's scary.
I'm just saying maybe even us big Hillary supporters, maybe we ought to take a look at this and say, is this really the right way to go? Just saying, just putting it out there. Hey, lots coming up this morning. We'll kick Josh Kraushaar from the National Journal will join us a little bit later this program. And then we'll also have reporters here in studio or on the phone from Politico, from the Washington Examiner, from Huffington Post, and from the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader. Yeah.
You got it.
Herald-Leader. So lots coming up here. And then one more assault rifle shooting. How many more before we finally take some action? But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a few other stories that are making news out there. The other classic case of think before you tweet. Mega pastor Joel Osteen should choose his words a little more carefully before he takes to Twitter. Over the weekend, he tweeted out, I'm just quoting his tweet here, "A true friend walks in when everybody else walks out. A true friend doesn't rub it in when you make a mistake. They rub it out." Now, people immediately started having some fun with that poorly worded tweet. You can imagine what some people had to say about that. He quickly deleted it. It's no longer online, but you know how the internet works. Once you put it out there, it's out there.
Oh, yeah. You can't delete something like that.
Yeah, no word on whether or not Anthony Weiner was tweeting for him over the weekend. I'm not sure if that was the case or not.
God.
The New York Marathon was back in action this weekend. In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, New York City shut down the marathon last year, but it was a new year with a similar result. Kenyan Jeffrey Mutai repeated his 2011 win. He completed the 26.2-mile course in 2 hours, 8 minutes, 24 seconds. By comparison, he actually holds the course record, which he set in 2011. He set it at 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 6 seconds. So he is the first repeat back-to-back winner of the marathon since the mid-'90s.
Can you imagine running 26 miles in 2 hours and 5 minutes?
No.
No, I mean...
No, not at all. Not even close. It hurts my head.
No, the endurance
and my legs.
factor is just incredible.
Yeah. And from the sports desk, a big day for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Since President Obama comes from Kenya, why doesn't he run the marathon?
That's a good point. Yesterday, it was a big day for the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, Nick Foles. He started the game against the Oakland Raiders in place of their usual starting quarterback, Michael Vick. He's out with an injury. Foles hasn't exactly been a power player in earlier games this season, but yesterday, he tied an NFL record by throwing 7 touchdown passes in one game. And that was all done before the fourth quarter even started. The Eagles then put in their third stringer in the fourth, so Foles didn't even get a chance to break the record. They easily won that game against the Raiders.
Good Lord.
7 touchdown passes. Yeah,
wow.
It was sick.
Yeah.
It was sick.
All right, Peter. Thank you. Yes, indeed, Friday. Here we go again. We've gotten so used to these, haven't we? And maybe that's the problem, that we've gotten so used to these assault rifle murders. And it happened about 9:30 Friday morning at LAX. A story that had a particular impact on me for a couple of reasons. One is because having lived in Los Angeles for so long and worked there, and I've been in and out of LAX literally hundreds of times, either for quick day flights up to San Francisco, down to San Diego. I mean, I can't tell you. I know that airport like the back of my hand. And number one, so it was a place I knew very, very well. Could just imagine walking into Terminal 3. I know all of those terminals, flown in and out of every one of them. Terminal 3, obviously, maybe the third one building as you make that horseshoe turn around LAX. The international terminal, the Tom Bradley terminal, number 4, is right at the end of the horseshoe, number 3 on the right-hand side, last one before you get to the big international terminal. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is that this 23-year-old gunman living in Los Angeles, but came from Pennsville, New Jersey, which is right at the bottom of the Delaware Memorial Bridge, where the Press family actually came from before they came to Delaware. They were in that area of Salem and Pennsville, New Jersey. And not only that, but this kid graduated from Salesianum High School in Wilmington, Delaware, which is my alma mater and where I had my high school reunion last weekend. A wonderful school run by a great group of priests, the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. Ironically, Francis de Sales being known among saints as the gentleman saint, who said famously, once you catch a whole lot more bees with a spoonful of honey than with a barrel full of vinegar. His whole approach was gentleness, nonviolence, and yet here this kid who graduated from that school obviously didn't pick up much the 4 years he was there, and moves to California, buys an assault rifle and a couple of other guns, and then walks into LAX because somehow we can't quite figure it out. He hated big government, and TSA to him was the embodiment of big government, even though he never. That's what they were trying to figure out. Did he apply for a job and he didn't get the job? Is that why he hated TSA? I don't know. Was he patted down once and didn't like it? Who knows? But he had this hatred for TSA, and he played it out at LAX after telling his family earlier in the day that basically I'm not going to survive this day. This day will be the end of my life, without any details. They notified authorities in New Jersey, who notified the police in Los Angeles, who went to this guy's home, and they just missed him. He was already on his way to LAX. Mayor Eric Garcetti talks about and identifies the young man we're talking about.
The suspect has been identified as Paul Anthony Ciancia, 23, a resident of Los Angeles.
Ciancia, again from Pennsville, New Jersey. He not only had this assault rifle, he had more than enough ammunition to keep up the mayhem.
There was additional rounds that this gunman had. And the fact that these officers were able to neutralize the threat as they did, there were more than 100 more rounds that could have literally killed everybody in that terminal.
John Pistole, the head of NSA, this is the first NSA agent, NSA, TSA, we've talked so much about NSA, the first TSA officers to be killed in the line of duty since TSA went up after September 11. And John Pistole, the head of TSA, identifies the shooting victim.
Mrs. Hernandez and the family are obviously deeply grieving at this time. And so the purpose, again, is to offer support, condolences from the president on down.
To the family of Gerardo Hernandez. And then the FBI noting that this guy had a note in his duffel bag, which is all we can put together as what his motive might have been.
In that note, he indicated his anger and his malice, I would say, towards the TSA officers.
But here's the questions I've got this morning, and I think a couple of them. One is, now, why wasn't there more media attention to this? I mean, this is the nation's third busiest airport, right? All of those people coming in and out of there, such a public place, like a shopping mall. And he came in there, opened fire, killed a TSA agent, was bound to kill other people before he was shot and traced down by the airport police. You know, this got attention on Friday. By Saturday morning, a story inside the paper. By Saturday afternoon, by Sunday, it was gone. Today, nobody but us talking about it. It's just sort of like, do we have to accept these assaults with assault weapons these days as just the new normal? Number one. And number two, how many more of these have to happen? I mean, look at it. Columbine and Aurora, California, and Virginia Tech and Newtown, Connecticut, and the Navy Yard here in Washington, D.C., and now LAX, and I know I'm forgetting a couple. How many more of these have to happen before politicians will have the courage and to do the right thing, which is to ban these assault weapons? And I know the NSA is so powerful, and this is such an unpopular issue, we're not supposed to talk about it. Well, damn it, I don't buy that. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep the pressure on. It is insane that anybody can walk into a store, and buy an assault rifle. Other than law enforcement officials, and they don't buy them by walking to stores, of course. Yeah, weapons of war. Law enforcement may need them. Nobody else has any excuse, any reason whatsoever for owning one of those weapons, and we've got to get back to a full, total ban on them. Again, what is it going to take? What is it going to take before we learn that lesson? And why isn't the media paying more attention to this? You tell me. 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77377.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack.
Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, talking about the shooting at LAX on Friday. You know, Friday, it reminded me a lot of the Navy Yard shooting in the sense that this was obviously a person with some serious mental problems, seriously screwed up person, should never have been allowed to buy an assault rifle. But I come back to, it's not just the mentally ill should not be allowed to buy them. Nobody should be allowed to buy them. You don't know who's going to crack on these things, or you don't know who's going to get their hands on them. You know, if I worked in one of these gun shops, I'd like to ask somebody who comes in to buy, whatever, AK-47 or that AR-15, I guess. What do you plan to do with this? Just exactly how are you going to use these 100 rounds of ammunition in this assault rifle? You know? I mean, what are they thinking? Why? Selling somebody of that.
You're certainly not going to use that for hunting.
You're certainly not going to use it for hunting. You're not going to use it to defend your family. What are you going to use it for? We've seen too often what people use it for. When are we going to move and do something? Carol's out in Albuquerque listening on 1350 KABQ. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for taking the call.
I'm glad you're there. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this particular shooting and all the other ones that have accumulated over the last several years. They certainly are disturbing, and it doesn't seem as though anything realistically is being done about it. And not only the shooting kinds of problems, but also things like immigration, jobs for people. Where's the American jobs bill? And I keep coming back to thinking, well, let's flip the Congress in 2014 and get rid of these people who don't seem to have enough common sense to do what Americans want.
Well, listen, if we could clean house in 2014, Carol, that would be, you know what? Send them all home, and what would that be? A good start.
Is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine.
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek. Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, Monday morning, November 4. Good to see you today. We're catching up with the news of the weekend, the news of the day here on the Bill Press Show, and getting your comments, of course, talking about the horrific shooting at LAX on Friday and why the media is not paying more attention to it. We've just sort of accepted these. Okay, at least one a week, no big deal anymore. Yes, it is a big deal, and we should not let this happen without demanding some action on assault rifles. I didn't even hear Dianne Feinstein talk about this yesterday on the Sunday shows. Although I'm sure she links this to the need for the ban on assault weapons. That's been her big issue. But she's alone in that, unfortunately. Another big story that's out there is the trouble that Rand Paul finds himself into. This one I find rather humorous, but Rand Paul, let's go back to the charge. The charge is that someone discovered that in his speeches and even in one of his books, Rand Paul has lifted entire paragraphs from other documents without sourcing them, without giving them credit. He has lifted material from Wikipedia, quoting it word for word. He's lifted material from stories by the Associated Press, and from a couple of popular movies. And also BuzzFeed reported that he lifted 1,318 words, a section from a study published by the Heritage Foundation. Now, we all have sources, right? When I write a book, write a column, write a speech, we all use sources. What Rand Paul did not do is did not credit those sources, did not say, as so-and-so said in such and such a movie, or as so-and-so said in this particular book. He just lifts it out and uses it and gives it as if it's his own words. Now, I don't know what you call that, but I call that stealing. I call that plagiarism. Is it a big deal? You bet it's a big deal. By the way, Rachel Maddow deserves some credit for this. She's been one of the ones who's really been on this case for some time. But remember what happened back in 1988 with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, one of his most popular parts of his speeches, he always got lots of applause. And when he talked about his family, his dad and working in the mines and all that kind of thing, it turned out he lifted that entire dialogue from a British politician, Neil Kinnock, and a speech that Neil Kinnock gave. And Joe Biden could have said, as the British statesman Neil Kinnock said, boom, 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 about his family. But he didn't. And when that was found out, Joe Biden had to drop out of the 1988 race. Well, here's Rand Paul thinking of running for president. If he's not already running, he is running in 2016. And he's stealing stuff from all these different sources. You bet it's a big deal. So Rand Paul, though, says you just can't, in a speech, you just can't cite every little source. And he was asked about this yesterday by George Stephanopoulos on This Week.
Do you concede at least that this is pretty sloppy? And don't you have to tighten up your speech-making operation if you indeed do want to have a presidential run?
Well, the footnote police have really been dogging me for the last week. I will admit that. And I will admit sometimes we haven't footnoted things properly. In fact, I've given thousands of speeches, and I don't think I've ever footnoted any of those speeches. In the speech in question, I quoted from 1984, Gattaca, My Left Foot, Michelangelo, Einstein, and Ray Bradbury, among maybe a dozen others. And I attributed everything to them.
Well, but he didn't. The speech that he's talked about, and when he was stumping for Ken Cuccinelli, he quoted Gattaca, and he didn't reference the source. I mean, obviously you don't, well, if you have a printed copy of a speech, maybe you footnote it, but in giving a speech, there's no such thing as like, unless there were banners like overhead, right, when you're giving the speech, like, the simultaneous translation of an opera or something, right? So they have it overhead. They would have a footnote, right? A little asterisk, and then the footnote while you're speaking. No, what you do is you say, as Ronald Reagan once said.
Right.
Boom.
Maybe you've seen the movie Gattaca.
Maybe you've seen the movie Gattaca. As so-and-so said in the movie Gattaca. That's how you do it. But you have to do it. You cannot just lift the words verbatim and claim them as your own and let people hearing them think they're your own. I mean, it's wrong. It's wrong. I don't care. I mean, he blames it on hacks and hacksters and all that kind of stuff. No, he did wrong. But Rand Paul is trying to make little of it. One of his aides was quoted as saying this: "Only in Washington is something this trivial a source for liberal media angst." Come on. You think this is a big deal? 866-55-PRESS. I do. And by the way, it's not just the liberal media. I mean, everybody ought to be concerned about this. Again, with Joe Biden, Democrats were as tough on Joe Biden when he was found out not to be giving credit to Neil Kinnock as Republicans were. It's just not being honest. So what would Rand Paul do about this? Well, he, coming from the South, has a particular solution, I guess.
I take it as an insult, and I will not lie down and say people can call me dishonest, misleading, or misrepresenting. I have never intentionally done so. And like I say, if dueling were legal in Kentucky, if they keep it up, it'd be a duel challenge. But I can't do that because I can't hold office in Kentucky.
Oh, great. Choose your weapons, right?
I like that defense.
Right.
I like that defense. If you don't agree with me, I will shoot you.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to shoot you.
I will shoot and kill you, right? And so you can have pistols or swords or a club. I don't know. What else would they use in Kentucky?
I imagine he's talking about pistols. Take a gun and duel.
When you're talking about dueling,
yeah,
that's what you're talking about.
I don't think he's talking about fencing.
No, I don't think so either. So why it's just what gets me, somebody as smart as Rand Paul, why doesn't he just say, I shouldn't have done that?
It's easy. Yeah. It's not that hard.
I guess I didn't think about somebody might think that. I thought they might recognize the movie lines and know that it really wasn't me. And so, I shouldn't have done that. So from now on, I'll make sure that people understand.
Boom.
So
done.
Easy to deal with.
And then it's done.
Right. Instead, he's got to go through this whole thing about, I didn't really do it. Well, I did it, but I didn't intentionally do it. and it's not wrong, and it's just a liberal media trying to attack me, and it's Rachel Maddow has been after me for 3 years. No, you did wrong, Rand Paul. But I mean,
now he wants to shoot somebody.
I like the people that he can we hear that bite again? I want to hear the people that he quoted. The one we had before, Peter, right? Yeah.
Do you concede at least that this is pretty sloppy? And don't you have to tighten up your speech-making operation if you indeed do want to have a presidential run?
Well, you know, the footnote police have really been dogging me for the last week. I will admit that. And I will admit sometimes we haven't footnoted things properly. In fact, I've given thousands of speeches, and I don't think I've ever footnoted any of those speeches. In the speech in question, I quoted from 1984, Gattaca, My Left Foot, Michelangelo, Einstein, and Ray Bradbury, among maybe a dozen others. And I attributed everything to them.
So, I mean...
Okay, so what the point I want to make is, the one thing you could say about Rand Paul, right, is he knows who these people are, right?
Yeah.
That's something for him. And he quotes them. You will never hear Ted Cruz quoting Ray Bradbury, Einstein, Michelangelo, Gattaca, or 1984. So he
quotes Dr. Seuss.
That's right. But you know what? He said
he gave credit.
He gave credit to Dr. Seuss. Right, exactly. So there you go. Rand Paul, a little hot water here. When we come back, Josh Kraushaar from the National Journal on the news of the day and what's happening, particularly with the Affordable Care Act.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Flick it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing down, I want you to just finish the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes before the top of the hour on a Monday morning, November 4. Here on the Bill Press Show, good to have you with us. We move into a very busy week on a lot of fronts to keep us up to date and bring us up to date on what's going on. Josh Kraushaar is the editor-in-chief of the National Journal, joining us on our news line this morning. Hey, Josh, always good to have you with us.
Good to be back on the show, Bill.
So, where do we start? Well, President Obama off on the campaign trail yesterday. Let's start in our neighboring state of Virginia here, stumping for Terry McAuliffe. How's it look over there?
Terry McAuliffe looks likely headed to a pretty significant victory in Virginia, Bill. And what's surprising to a lot of political observers is the margin. You look at every poll, nearly every poll shows McAuliffe with a mid to upper single-digit lead, 7, 8, 9 points or so. And Cuccinelli, it's been really remarkable. Virginia has this remarkable streak dating back to the early 1970s of electing a governor opposite the president's party. And with everything that's going on with the health care law and with the national wins on paper seeming to be in his favor, Cuccinelli just hasn't been able to get any traction. He's been outspent by a 2-to-1 margin, at least in the state. And no one would have thought Terry McAuliffe would have been a prohibitive favorite headed into Election Day a few months ago. But here we are today, and he's Governor McAuliffe is going to be the reality.
Friends who live in Virginia told me over the weekend they think it'll be a sweep, actually, meaning governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general.
Yeah, the only question mark is the attorney general's race between Mark Obenshain and the Republican and Mark Herring, the Democrat. And a lot of third-party money, a lot of outside groups have been spending money on the attorney general race because they think Cuccinelli is going to lose, and they'll want to have one Republican office statewide in Virginia. And Bill, what's remarkable is Virginia, once a pretty Republican state not that long ago, both senators, Democrats. You could see Governor McAuliffe in the office next year. You have a lieutenant governor that's going to be a Democrat according to all available polls. The only race that's even remotely competitive right now for Republicans is the attorney general race.
So if it turns out, even if it doesn't turn out to be a Democratic sweep, if it's 2 out of 3 even, but if it's 3 out of 3, you've got 3 Tea Party candidates. If all 3 lose, it seems to me they may not see it that way, but that sends a pretty powerful message to the Republican Party in terms of electability of the Tea Party. If they can't win in Virginia, right?
It sends a very powerful message, and it shows what happens when the Republican Party is divided, as they have been in Virginia, and when it moves to the right. When you would nominate someone who's as outspokenly conservative as Ken Cuccinelli. I mean, Bob McDonnell was a pretty conservative nominee in 2009, but he focused on jobs, the economy, pocketbook issues. We haven't seen that kind of focus with Cuccinelli. The message has been all over the place, and you have this convention. For you listeners who aren't aware, Virginia has this very unique process that Republicans and conservative Republicans have adopted, where instead of having voters vote in a primary, they have the most ardent single-issue activists show up at a convention on a Saturday and nominate. And these make conservatives look downright squishy. And they nominated Cuccinelli, and
this is a Tea Party rally. Is what it really is.
They also nominated a lieutenant governor nominee who has made this history of extreme comments and has painted the ticket in a way that no strategist would ever recommend. So this is a self-inflicted wound in part. Cuccinelli has his own issues, but the way the process has been dealt with by Republicans is the real problem.
Speaking of self-inflicted wounds, I guess President Obama said over and over and over again, if you got health care today and you like your plan, you're going to be able to keep it. Didn't turn out that way, did it?
No, and the Washington Post over the weekend ran a pretty devastating story, giving a little bit of a TikTok behind the scenes of what actually happened in the administration in 2010 when Democrats held both houses of Congress, and when it looked like the law was at its most popular, and it showed how concerned they were about the political consequences, how poor the management was of the law inside the administration, inside the government, and it really shows a process that's been in a really crisis stage from the get-go. This issue isn't going away. The website has been taken down, and it's going to be taken down overnight for the next few days, at the very least. I've been talking to sources who are skeptical.
Does it come back up during the day?
If it works. It still doesn't work, so people still can't really get on the website. And I've heard from sources, both Democrat and Republican, who are starting to raise some skepticism about this November 30th date. I mean, this is really the drop-dead date where they absolutely need to have some workable website up. for people to get subsidies, for people to access their health insurance, and hopefully they'll get it set up in time. But I'm hearing increasing skepticism from members of both parties.
Well, the other reality here is the New York Times, if you saw their lead editorial this morning, maybe it was yesterday. No, it was yesterday. The Sunday paper pointed out that these policies that some people who have insurance will lose are policies that aren't worth a damn to begin with, right? They're policies with huge deductibles, $10,000, $25,000 deductibles. They just don't meet the standards of the Affordable Care Act.
There's a mix of that. I mean, there was a Wall Street Journal editorial today, and one of the big consequences we're starting to hear about, and I think this has the most potential political backlash for the White House, is that some of these policies offer more coverage, but they also limit the number of doctors. Like HMOs, you have a certain number of doctors you might be able to see, and for people who are bumped off of their individual exchange insurance, they're finding that they may not be able to see the same doctors they've been seeing in the past. And there was a very powerful Wall Street Journal contribution over the weekend from someone who had a very serious stage 4 cancer, and she found out that her individual insurance was being canceled, and then she can't see the doctors, the specialists she's been seeing for quite some time. And this kind of disruption, whether you're going to see winners and losers, people are going to many more people are going to benefit, but they're going to be losers as part of this new arrangement. And the White House was just clearly not prepared to both communicate that from the get-go and also really be prepared for the after effect of that.
There are some losers. There are also some winners. Nick Kristof had a piece, a column in the New York Times yesterday talking about a winner, one who really serious cancer out in Seattle, I believe it was. Just looking here. At any rate, there are stories on both sides.
The politics. I mean, you got to be prepared to respond and actually have a concerted reaction.
And the White House really hasn't done it. They really haven't done a good job of that. Josh, oh my God. Didn't even get to Rand Paul yet. We'll have to save that for next time.
We can get into a duel over Rand Paul.
Yeah, that's right. I'll challenge you to a duel. Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
Great. Josh Kraushaar is the editor-in-chief of the National Journal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek, Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Neil King from the Wall Street Journal here is a friend of Bill. In the next hour, we'll be joined by Tim Mack from the Washington Examiner. Peter, you've got a couple of stories there that we haven't had a chance to touch on yet.
Well, we talked last week, we got the big news that the FAA was now going to allow people to use their electronic devices.
If the planes are so equipped.
Exactly.
Right?
The planes had to be equipped.
Okay.
Well, good news, if you're flying on Delta or JetBlue, they have now been officially approved by the FAA. They said that those airlines are ready to go. They are equipped. They have the new implementation of of what they need to cover these electronic devices. All is well. So you can get on there and you can play Angry Birds, Words with Friends, whatever you want.
You know, I'm flying to the West Coast this week.
Are you flying?
I think I'm flying on Delta.
Is that right?
I'm going to have to double check. This could be exciting.
You are in luck, friend.
Solitaire and Angry Birds.
There you go. Load up your iPod. You can listen to it on takeoff now.
They won't get me.
Yeah, they'll get you, man.
Do I still have to listen to this? Here's how you fasten your seatbelt thing?
According to them, yes. Between us and all of our friends watching and listening, screw it.
You know what? I've never listened to it yet, so why start? Why start now? All right, hey, stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Everybody, it's Monday morning. What do you say? Hope you had a great weekend, had a good chance to relax, recharge your batteries, and are ready to go this Monday morning, November 4, with lots to talk about here on the Bill Press Show. Coming to you live from our nation's capital on Free Speech TV and, of course, on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Another week, another shooting, sadly. Yep, on Friday morning, out in Los Angeles, a lone gunman with an assault rifle walked into LAX, opened fire, killing one TSA agent and wounding several others, threatening passengers running through the terminal before he was gunned down by LA airport police officers. He has now been charged with murder. 23-year-old from Pennsville, New Jersey. How many more of these assault rifle attacks will it take before we do something to ban them forever? In other news, Rand Paul in a little hot water this morning, accused of plagiarism because it's been shown that he lifted entire portions of movie scripts and also from Wikipedia in his speeches and his books without giving them credit. Rand Paul says, anybody who accuses me of that, I will challenge them to a duel. That's how they do things in Kentucky. And critics of the Affordable Care Act are still trying to make a big deal over the fact that some people, a small percentage of Americans, will be forced to lose their health care plans and buy another one. But of course, those plans were not worth a damn in the first place. President Obama campaigning over the weekend for Terry McAuliffe. Lots going on this Monday morning, so stick around right here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go. Big governor's races tomorrow. Elections tomorrow in Virginia and New Jersey. Yeah, and an off year, but 2 big races there to watch. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Monday, November 4. Good to have you with us today. Hope you had a great weekend and are ready now to jump in and tackle the big stories of the day here. That's what we do. Our job is to tell you what's going on. Your job is to tell you what it all means to you, what you think about it, what it means to you and your family and your community. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. No matter how acid, we'll take them. We can take them, you know. We got thick-skinned. And also on Peter reminding me to fix my hair.
I'm hair and makeup team, too, apparently.
Speaking of acid.
Yeah, right. Acid comments. And if you're a friend of ours on Facebook, and if not, why the hell not? Send us your comments on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Speaking of friends, a great friend of the show and a friend here is a friend to Bill this entire hour. Neil King from the Wall Street Journal, national political reporter. Hello, Neil.
Good morning, Bill Press.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
You're hot off the New York Marathon, I guess, right?
No. I was just talking marathons. I was not out running that one. No.
What?
I'm running the Philadelphia Marathon, too. But yeah.
There's a marathon and you didn't run it?
I was just talking it up.
How do you pick and choose?
Well, that one's not that easy to get into unless you're really a fast runner or you qualify via lottery. And because of the year before having been canceled, I think it was all the harder to get into. I ran it a couple years ago. It is a lot of fun.
Dude that won it did it in, I think it was like 2 hours, 8 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, what you always want to do is...
Can you imagine?
No, I cannot imagine. You know what's amazing? And somebody told this to me and I said, nah, come on. Is that if you got at the 2 miles before the finish, so the guy's tired, and you tried to keep up with him for a block, you couldn't do it. You couldn't. And I'm not just talking about you. I couldn't do it either. Those guys are running so fast. Yeah, they are sprinting, basically. Yeah. And they sprint for 26 miles.
They sprint the whole...
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
I mean, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it for a block. Maybe. Not 2 blocks.
I was on the treadmill yesterday at the gym, okay? And I was doing my about 5 miles an hour, which is...
that's not bad.
It's not bad for me. It's fine.
Yeah.
And there's this woman alongside of me, man, and she was trucking, and I snuck a peek. I looked over, and she was going like 8.2 miles an hour.
Oh man,
that is fast.
And I just thought, what's the point here? Slow down, babe. You know, God.
Who are you trying to show off?
Yeah, show off.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what these guys run that, right? What's a sprint?
Well, I think of minute miles. So you were running like 9:45 minute miles or something like that. Those guys will run 5 minute miles, something like that, right? I mean, you could do the math and figure, or even less. No, I doubt they're running less than 5 minute miles. But remember when it was like a big thing when somebody broke the 4 minute mile? They ran a mile in less than 4 minutes. These guys will run an entire marathon in like 5-ish.
Unbelievable!
Yeah.
Wow. From marathon or not, it's good to have you here today. And one of the big rumors last week was, oh my God, President Obama actually considered in 2012 dumping Joe Biden and replacing him with Hillary Clinton. Dan Pfeiffer, he's no longer communications director, but one of the top advisors to the President Obama. Yesterday, with George Stephanopoulos, said, no way, didn't happen. Here he is.
This was never seriously considered, never taken on the president. I can tell you, no one in the campaign, or not the president, ever seriously considered this in any way, shape, or form.
Well, then why was the research done?
Research is done on a lot of things. As I think Bill Daley, who was chief of staff at the time, said the other morning on another network, wasn't taking the president. He said anyone who took it to the president probably would have been thrown out of the Oval Office. I believe that to be true.
Now, national political reporter for the Wall Street Journal, what do your sources tell you? Was it
just exactly that? They put out her name in a single poll. As far as we understand, they were not allowed to poll on her as a candidate because she was still Secretary of State.
Right.
And so they asked, what would you think if she campaigned a lot with the president or something? It was about as, I don't even think they did a focus group. They might have, but it was, and the idea that Obama himself, the president, which Pfeiffer is saying there, that the president considered nothing ever because it never was brought to him. I mean, this is a tiny little, funny little nothing thing, but we love those things.
Oh, no.
And there was a lot. What's funny is that Amy Chozick in the New York Times, I think in part maybe because people kind of like gave this to her as a tidbit a couple of months ago, she did a story about the relationship between Biden and Hillary Clinton. This was, I think, 2 months ago, and that was the lead of her story. Was that, it was funny. People have forgotten it now, but so she sort of scooped, the Halperin Heilman book.
Plus, it's got to be said that's right. This came out of the double down. Right. But it's got to be said that that Joe Biden has proven to be, I believe, one of the most effective, one of the most successful and powerful vice presidents in our history. Yeah. And he and Obama, it seems to me, watching them at the White House, they have a very close working relationship. They have this regular lunch every week. Any big issue, Obama designates Joe, go fix this, right? He's the point guy.
Well, you have to, if you go back over, the last 30 years, if you were to go back to George H.W. Bush with Dan Quayle, you would have thought he might have considered a swap out there in 92, right?
Yes.
And he probably did.
One would think.
And you could imagine, leading up to 2004, that George W. Bush might have thought of a swap out of Dick Cheney, who was anything but like a plus for him in the electorate, right? I mean, he was certainly, people loved him on the right, but I don't think anybody in the middle or to and I don't think anybody ever thought that Clinton thought to swap out Al Gore, right? I mean, that would have made no sense. But it's the idea. I mean, anyway, I don't think Biden is anywhere near that kind of category of where people would have thought seriously about it.
No. A little blip, but it got us all talking. So Neil's here as a friend of Bill this hour. We're going to be joined by Tim Mack from the Washington Examiner at the half hour. In the next hour, Sam Youngman, now down in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, to talk about Rand Paul and his little plagiarism scandal, and Sabrina Siddiqui here from Huffington Post. Neil, where do we start today? Let's start with a little bit of the politics. President Obama crossed the river yesterday, stumping for Terry McAuliffe. It looks like Virginia might really turn blue, huh?
It might, and what's going to be interesting, I mean, I think it's kind of more or less a given, right, that McAuliffe's going to win. PPP poll came out today, has him up 7. Basically, every poll all along has had him up. And it's possible that the Democrats win all 3 statewide races, and it's also possible that they pick up
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General.
Right, and then they pick up a few seats, particularly in the north, around the suburban areas, in which case it looks like, a real solid win. And if that happens, even just with the taking of the governor's mansion, there are going to be a lot of recriminations within the Republican ranks, because it just, it's sort of the story of the year in many ways, writ small in the state of Virginia. I mean, they, Cuccinelli shouldered aside Bill Bolling, the lieutenant governor, and by saying we're going to take this to a caucus, which very much appealed to us.
Right.
Yeah, a convention system, yeah.
As opposed to a primary.
Right, and so it's an entirely different group of people that are doing the selecting. It's very possible. A lot of people say that that Bill Bolling would now be leading and would become who knows? I mean, he's not exactly the most dynamic fellow on earth, but he appealed to the center, and you can see the lack of enthusiasm for Cuccinelli just in the dollars. He's got, I think he's raised about $20 million. McAuliffe's raised about $35 million. Pretty big gap. It just, it's one sort of fervent, purified core of Tea Party-ish people saying this is our man, and the rest not.
So you would think if all 3 Tea Party candidates, and they are all 3 Tea Party candidates, if they were to lose, that some people might, in wiser heads in the Republican Party, would say this shows that we cannot campaign on the extreme right and win elections. But the tendency of the Tea Party is, talk about double down, right? To double down and just say, no, they weren't good enough candidates, or we didn't give them enough money, or, they never seem to learn. Look at the Ted Cruz boomlet right now. So will there be if this happens, will that send a message to the National Republican Party, do you believe?
It'll send a huge message, and it's already been sent. Obviously, it was sent all last month during the shutdown. I mean, the polling, I did a story last week. We had a poll. We have them come out fairly often that we do with NBC, and in this one, I kind of dug in a couple of days later, and I was looking at, all right, we ask, are you positive and negative about a variety of things? And so if you just look at the numbers of, do you consider yourself a Republican? Yes. Are you positive or negatively disposed towards the Republican Party? At the end of last year, among Republicans, they felt positively about their party. 65%, basically, almost 2/3 of Republicans felt positively about their party. Now it's under half, 49%
of their own party.
Of their own party, yeah. So, and you look at Democrats, they were about 80% of Democrats felt positively towards their party at the end of last year, and now it's like 75%. So there's like this slight diminution in a pretty ghastly year for politics, and among sort of wavering, middle-of-the-road Republicans, probably what we consider to be more establishment people who have other things going on in their lives and just aren't all about politics, and they're about twice the number of like the fervent Republicans. Those people are down to about 1/3 who feel positively towards the Republican Party. So it's really like there is a serious sort of distaste for the party itself among its own adherents.
Now, speaking of speculation, let's say, they brought him back from the dead yesterday on Meet the Press, Mitt Romney, and he was asked the inevitable question, okay, who are the Republicans' likely candidates in 2016, the front runners? Mitt Romney.
Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio. I mean, there's a long list of very capable people, but Chris Christie stands out as one of the very strongest lights in the Republican Party.
Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie. Who's missing from that list? Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
And Rand Paul, for that matter. You didn't mention Rand Paul.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would reverse that list in a big way, right? I mean, I would start with Christie. Then you'd have to put in one of the people like Rand Paul or Ted Cruz probably next in the list. Rubio's fourth or fifth. Jeb Bush, totally unknown what his intentions are.
But in fact, that's interesting. The reason I want to go there because if Christie wins, which does look likely, as good a candidate as Barbara Bono is, if Christie wins, that sends a message, too, to the Republican Party, the reverse of Virginia, right?
Yeah, I mean, if anything...
Here's the kind of message and guy to deliver the message that you need.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a whole slew of reasons why for that Christie is the kind of person. I mean, he's running on his record. And a lot of his record isn't necessarily a policy record. As a matter of fact, a lot of his things haven't even been all that successful. I mean, the unemployment rate is still high there, and the finances of the state aren't necessarily that great. A lot of it is just, I'm out and about. I see people. I walk the boardwalk. I hug them. I did the whole empathy thing after Sandy. People have a warm feeling about him. And that trumps policy.
I say what I think. I call them out.
Yeah.
I tell these jerks to get off the beach in the storm. Get the hell out of the surf. And I mean, that kind of color.
Yeah. I mean, does the Jersey shtick travel? That's going to be the big question.
But he's certainly not a Tea Partier.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
It's funny because if in the end McAuliffe wins and if Christie wins in New Jersey, it's going to be here are two guys who both played very much to the center and both did this bipartisan thing. I mean, McAuliffe was no prouder than about the Republicans that he got to come over to endorse him, and he got quite a few.
All right, now while we're at it, quickly, Chuck Schumer. On the Democratic side, we heard Mitt Romney's predictions for 2016. For Chuck Schumer, it's a done deal. He was in Iowa yesterday.
2016 is Hillary's time. Run, Hillary, run. If you run, you'll win and we'll all win.
Now, I remember 2008, Neil, when everybody said, this is it. Hillary's the nominee. She deserves it. She's the best. She's qualified. She's the most experienced. Lock on the nomination. And Democrats are doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
And I'm a Hillary fan, but I just say, this is maybe a little premature.
It is. I still didn't understand what the backstory was behind that endorsement 3 years before the election. It was a little bit odd. He must be jockeying for some sort of thing. But
well, there was a TV camera there.
Yeah, exactly. Needing to make news.
Right.
That was. I know. It's run, Hillary, run. There's not a lot else that folks are talking about on the Democratic side, so they very much need her to run.
No,
right?
And the big PAC and everything. I talked to Craig Smith the other day, who's running that PAC. I mean, there's a big movement behind getting her to run. And we have to touch on Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and the problems with the website and with some of the people losing their existing plans, even though the president said that would never happen. We'll do that with Neil King on the other side when we come back here. And your calls are always welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Neil King, national political reporter, senior political reporter for Wall Street Journal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, Neil King is here from the Wall Street Journal as a friend of Bill this whole hour. We'll be joined by Congressional Correspondent Tim Mack for the Washington Examiner in the next half hour. So, Neil, to say the least, the White House has had problems with the rollout of Obamacare, right? First the website, and then the fact that some people, despite what the president said, who have insurance, maybe it is a small percentage, but they're going to lose those plans because those plans don't meet the test, right?
Yeah.
So are they going to get this stuff together?
They might, but the difficulty is this is one of those things that's about actual sort of making things happen. It's not a messaging thing. It's not something that Jay Carney can fix by saying soothing things at the podium, right? I mean, and that's the worst sort of thing because you're having to move, get the functioning right, and then it all has to sort of come together. And the difficult thing is that you can't explain. This is where the small trumps the large, and that the numbers may not be vast. It may, everyone knows this is 5 or 6% of the population, something like that. Still, that's not a small number of people. But if you have a large amount of noise coming out of a small portion of the population who are really being affected by this or angry by it, that's going to trump any of the explanations about, well, in the long run, there'll be winners and losers, and it's all going to come together. The difficulty for the White House is the coming together part is probably like in the first quarter of next year, right? Once the exchanges, the whole thing kind of becomes operational once the individual mandate actually starts to kick in. And once we start to see, now there are more, the number of uninsured has gone down, and the cost curve, or, we're seeing this sort of effect on healthcare prices overall, because that's obviously also part of its aim.
Well, they put it out there. That November 30, we're going to have this thing fixed. And Jeff Zients is one of the most capable people around the president. This is a do or die for them, isn't it?
It is. And you know how these things go. There's obviously, on the one hand, we want the system to work. Collectively, it needs to work, or we're in some trouble. And then just for the Democratic Party and for Obama, there's, of course, next November. For the sort of political ramifications next November, they really need this to work by, March or April, when these sort of things solidify in the public mind. I don't know whether right now is necessarily going to be what. But there's no doubt, I think, that if you look at like the shutdown, which is now fast receding in people's memory, that the idea that that's going to affect next November's congressional election compared to the success or failure of Obamacare, there's going to be no contest. This is hugely important. For Obama, not only is this his signature achievement, as everybody said 1,000 times, but it's also he needs to do well in the midterm election, because that'll determine the rest of his second term. Yeah, no, absolutely. And all that talk about the shutdown, that's going to determine the 2014. I never believed it. People's memory is too short. Neil King here. We'll be joined by Tim Mack coming up here. Stay around on the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek, Newtown,
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
We got it 33 minutes after the hour here, the Bill Press Show on a Monday morning, Monday, November 4. So good to have you with us today. And we got it covered here in the studio. Neil King, he covers the world politically for the Wall Street Journal. Tim Mack joins us from the Washington Examiner. He covers national security and defense issues in the Congress for the Washington Examiner, as I said. And good to have you both with us. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Where do we start? Let's start. You have just been on a very interesting mission at Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. How'd you get there?
Well, the Defense Department brings down a group of reporters every time there's a military commission proceeding. And so KSM...
You mean a hearing? Is that a military...
Yeah, it's a military commission hearing proceeding. Basically, they're trying to go forward with trial with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 4 other accused of conspiring to plot the 9/11 attacks.
Mm-hmm. And so you were there how long? How many?
Well, there were 4 days.
Or a day?
Yeah, I was there for 6 days. And the
Did you sleep in one of those steel cages?
No.
Did you wear an orange jumpsuit?
No, but it's not all that comfortable down in Guantanamo. You sleep in a tent and you shower in a tent. And all the latrines are in tents. I mean, it's.
Do they still have that bar there?
There's this Irish bar called O'Kelly's, and they term it as the
How
only
did you know
Irish bar.
about this bar?
It's famous.
Well, I have not been down there, but you don't know about O'Kelly's?
No.
Come on.
No, it's
Phil.
the only Irish bar on communist soil, they claim.
There's not a lot of communist soil left.
I'm sorry. That is U.S. soil.
Oh, yeah.
Guantanamo was U.S. soil.
It is leased from the Cubans.
Yeah,
It is leased from the Cubans.
So,
hey, let them have their little kitschy saying.
No mojitos there then? No?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any. I stuck with good old made in America, brew.
There you go.
Yeah.
What did you learn at Guantanamo? How many? Let's get some numbers, right? How many people are still there? How many prisoners are still there?
I believe there are 164 still there. Recently, there were 2.
It was as high as 300 at one time.
Right. At its very max, it was at 300.
164. And haven't a good number of them been already cleared for release, but for various reasons they haven't been released?
Yeah, I'd say about 80 of them have been cleared for release, and many of those 80 can't be released because they're Yemeni, and there are some ongoing security issues that the president sees with what's going on in Yemen, and so he feels the need to not release them until he feels happy with that security situation.
Is there still any talk about shutting down Gitmo?
Interestingly enough, I mean, just a couple days ago, on November 1st, was the first day for the new Gitmo czar, Gitmo closure czar. The president has appointed a new person to oversee closing this thing down. It's going to take years. It's going to take a lot of effort. So he appointed a congressional lawyer from the House Armed Services Committee to go and make sure that this is done.
That was the job of Dan Fried before, right? The State Department, which was not a pleasant job, I don't think.
But I think the reason it wasn't shut down, as I recall, remember the first year, he was going to do it within his first year, is because they could not transfer those prisoners to the United States. Congress blocked that.
Right.
So why do we think that's going to change now?
He wants to inject new oxygen into it, A, and B, the congressional block is a temporary one. It can be reversed at any time. If there's sufficient will in Congress to say, hey, it's time to close down this base, it can be done. The president just needs someone to lead up the effort and convince Congress to do it. I mean, and so appointing a congressional lawyer from the House Armed Services Committee, Democratic side, isn't a terrible idea.
Politically, Neil, I mean, this doesn't really have a big constituency, does it?
It did for a while, and obviously it did in 2008 because Obama talked about it a lot, and that was actually one of his. And I remember even in the 12 campaign, there were you'd go out to Iowa and places. A lot of the disenchanted people who were rallying around Ron Paul were a lot of them folks that had been big for Obama, and this is one of the things that they would tick off. Basically, they were kind of
that he didn't
liberals.
Shut down
Gitmo, yeah. I think it still is definitely an irritant, particularly among his more liberal base.
Now, both Neil and I noticed in reading your story about Guantanamo, the banana rats.
Okay, so there are these rodents. They're these gigantic rodents. They're 4 or 5 feet long. They're terrifying. And
rats?
They're rodents.
How long
they're
are they?
called banana rats.
4 or 5 feet.
4 or 5 feet. They're gigantic.
Those are dogs.
I mean,
they're basically the size of dogs. They're basically the size of dogs.
That's a machine gun shooting them, I think.
Kill it with fire.
No, I mean, so
they just prowl. I mean, they have the run of the.
So one thing we did while we were down there is that the military took us on a small group of us on a tour of Camp X-Ray, which is the former outdoor detainee facility.
Yeah,
and it's been
the
shut
one that
down.
we think of when we think of Guantanamo.
Yeah, when you see a picture of Guantanamo Bay and you see people in orange jumpsuits kneeling on the ground, that's from Camp X-Ray.
Which doesn't function anymore,
It
right?
hasn't functioned for over a decade, and they haven't done anything to it. It closed in April 2002. And since then, it was used for waterboarding briefly afterwards, but since then, hasn't really been used. And if you go there now, it's just utterly overgrown. The floorboards are rotting. There's vegetation everywhere. Banana rats roam the cages and stuff like that. That's what you notice. It's very uneasy, kind of creepy feeling settles over that whole scene. And that's what's happened to it.
I'd be creeped out by a 4-foot rat.
But it's not just that. There's these pristine interrogation rooms that are still standing there. Interrogation rooms which were supposedly used for waterboarding and other enhanced interrogation techniques.
Well, I've even lost track of what was Gitmo all about anyhow? Is it supposed to protect us from the?
Well, they captured all these people, particularly in Afghanistan, right? And
right. Like beforehand, it's a long existing military base.
Yeah,
right?
It's a naval station. It was used as a coaling station back in the late 19th century. The Cubans leased it out to the United States, and then before communists took power, they signed a perpetual lease, and so the United States has been there as a naval base ever since. It generally wasn't used as a detainee facility until after 9/11. Mm-hmm. It was used to process refugees from Haiti and Cuba. It was used kind of as your standard naval outpost. But it wasn't always, it historically hasn't been this kind of very controversial facility. I mean, you remember in A Few Good Men, it was just a normal base where something bad happened. It was just not a very controversial place.
Boy, it's become one of the most, right? That and...
It's been both controversial and kind of forgotten at the same time, right? I mean, for the most part, the attention has gone off of it.
Well, I'm glad you went. Neil and I were planning a trip, but now I know that you have to sleep in tents and take showers in tents. No, we'll...
Among the rats.
Yeah, among the rats.
Did you go swimming?
Yeah, I mean, it's the weird, surreal part of it is.
All right, now the beaches. Yes, the beaches at Guantanamo.
I mean, you can go swimming, but you know, you go swimming and you look up and there's a guard tower and there are men with guns and, and there's barbed wire everywhere and they're watching you swim. Basically, it's a very you don't stay in the water for all that long.
But if you drown, they will not come save you. They're not those kind of lifeguards.
It's not Pamela Anderson in the red swimsuit running down the beach.
Not at all.
All right. Welcome back from Gitmo to the land of, I know this is another issue that you've been dealing with there and Neil's been writing about too, is NSA and this whole flap now about, I mean, what did we learn from spying on the Pope? Or what did we learn from spying on Angela Merkel? And who, you know, Neil, the question we cannot get an answer to at the White House briefings, and we've been asking Jay Carney every day, is who makes the decision to spy on world leaders, particularly friendly world leaders? And they won't say. And it's clearly not if the White House is correct, it's not the president because he says he didn't know we were doing it.
I find it hard to believe that he didn't know that we were doing it per se, because that, for decades, since the creation of the NSA, has been one of the things that it does, and it doesn't necessarily do it. I mean, it does it because the more we know, the better we're off in all kinds of discussions and in any sort of negotiations. And if somebody had asked me 2 years ago, do you think that the NSA is trying to listen in on all world leaders, including our allies, I would have said, yeah, I do. I would think that they were doing that. Not that it's necessarily a good thing, but it's not also like some automatically nefarious thing per se. I mean, I find it a little bit funny that Europe is reacting the way they are, because in some of it is just what these agencies do, and their equivalents in those countries have been pretty active in doing it themselves.
Germany, perhaps the one exception, given its history, and particularly Angela Merkel growing up in East Germany, where they knew they were being listened to. So is there the likelihood of any reform of NSA or any restraints on NSA out of this Congress?
I mean, there is the possibility, which is more than we've seen in quite some time, and that's a real threat to the NSA. They feel vulnerable. They feel operationally they can't do what they feel is necessary to protect the country. They're really recoiling now that people seem so shocked and offended at what they've been doing for quite some time, unchecked. They say, well, hold on, we as the NSA have done what we are obligated to do in terms of disclosure to the congressional committees that oversee us, to the White House. We've briefed them on the top level of all these things. We might have not briefed every individual operation, but this should not be a surprise to politicians in the know who cover these issues, who oversee us. Why the sudden backlash? Just because it's public? You want to make us into a punching bag? That's the way they feel right now.
And the other thing they say, of course, is, as Keith Alexander said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I don't want to get in trouble like Rand Paul for plagiarizing here, but he said something like, it's better to spy on these people than to have to apologize for another 9/11 attack. They keep going back to 9/11. We've got to do this. But again, I think that raises the question about exactly what did they learn about terrorism from listening in on Angela Merkel's private cell phone.
Well, that's not an entirely fair characterization, right? Because not all of this listening to our allies has to do with preventing terrorism. A lot of it has to do with gaining an upper hand in economic talks, for example.
Trade negotiations.
Absolutely. I will quote Jay Carney as saying, we never use intelligence for trade operations. He told us that at the White House. So what's going on here? We'll continue our conversation with Neil King and Tim Mack here. And we'll find a seat for you at the table here somewhere. Just give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV, this is The Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. At the top of the next hour, we're going to go down to Lexington, Kentucky, talk to Sam Youngman about the little trouble that Rand Paul is in on charges of plagiarism. Right now we're talking NSA and Gitmo. In studio here, Neil King, as a friend of Bill, from national political correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, and Tim Mack, who covers national security and defense issues for the Washington Examiner on the Hill. Welcome back to both of you. By the way, a point I think it's worth noting that Congressman Michaud, his first name just blanking, Mike Michaud from Maine, is running for governor in Maine. And when he announced that he was running for governor, there were rumors about his sexual orientation, and so he put out an op-ed in 3 Maine newspapers this morning and said, "Yep, in fact, I am gay, and I'm proud of it, and no big deal." He is now the 7th openly gay member of Congress, and then Senator Tammy Baldwin, of course, in the Senate. It's remarkable compared to what it used to be, where poor Barney Frank was the only one that was in the closet for a long time.
Right.
So Maine Representative Mike Michaud coming out today. I want to go back to where we were talking about with the NSA, because you mentioned during the break where was it reported? Wall Street Journal, I think your paper, Neil, reported that the president was going to have a big meeting with the Secretary General of the United Nations. What the Secretary General didn't realize is before he got to the meeting, all of his talking points, everything he was going to raise with the president already knew it ahead of time because NSA had been listening in on his phone call. Is that legit?
Well, I think if you're someone who supports the United States national security interests and you want them to have a competitive advantage going into any sort of conversations or negotiations, then you would cheer this development and say, well, going into this, the United States has an upper hand.
So we cheated, so we're ahead. So I like this.
Depends what the rules are.
Don't you
right?
think the president could handle a meeting with Ban Ki-moon without having to know his talking points
that's not
ahead
the
of time?
That's not the point. The point isn't that the president couldn't handle it. It's that the president has an advantage going into it. And if you support, the president having an advantage going into conversations, then that's a good thing. It depends what the rules are. If the rules are that everyone's spying on one another and you just happen to have a better spying agency.
I mean, I want an advantage if it comes to terrorists or warfare or something, but an advantage in a meeting with the Secretary General, Neil, I don't know.
I mean, did he even read through those same talking points necessarily? I mean, it's an excess of vigilance, right? It's like, okay, here we'll tell you everything we think you need to know going into this meeting. Oh, by the way, it just so happens, and he might not have even known where these came from. And it wouldn't have been through a tap of a phone, obviously. It would have been some kind of email grab or something. His talking about. These are the things that he's going to bring up. Right. I mean, the other alternative would be these are the things we think he's likely to bring up based on our own, investigations. But if you actually have managed to go out and find the list of the things he is really going to bring up, that's even one step better.
I mean, I worked for Governor Jerry Brown in California, and for every big meeting, right, we would give him notes that here's what this business leader is probably going to ask you about. Well, yeah, you do that. That's normal staff work. But I have to tell you, we were not bugging his cell phone.
Yeah, well,
right, or listening in on his conversations or anything. That to me, a little excessive, I believe. But I don't think anything's going to happen because I don't think this Congress dares stand up to the intelligence agencies. There are too many of them. They're too big.
Well, the idea of courtesy and not overreaching on allies does have a long precedence in American history. I mean, Secretary of State Henry Stimson said in the early 20th century that gentlemen do not read each other's mail, and that was a predominant view of investigative services in the United States until World War II, but since that trial by fire in World War II, the United States has never quite been that gentlemanly again.
Those were the days, Neil. Right.
I could, but I won't read his name. No. And not his talking points. No. Gentlemen should not even be interested in reading the other man's talking points.
Well, the other thing, and we're out of time here, we don't really have time to explore, but it does raise a question, too, of what's the difference between the Bush-Cheney administration and the Obama-Biden administration when it comes to the use of the intelligence agencies.
Probably only gotten better and more extensive, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's been diminished at all. No. It hasn't changed. If it's changed, it's that we're collecting more information than we ever did before. There we go. Tim Mack, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back from Guantanamo. Hey, Neil, always good to have you in the studio.
Great to be here.
Neighbor and friend of Bill, and I'll be back and tell you what the president's up to today. Thanks.
This
Thank you.
is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, folks, hope you're enjoying the show this Monday morning, but, we're going to lose you on Free Speech TV in the next hour. That's too bad, but you can also continue to watch the show on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV, and, of course, listen on your local Progressive Talk radio station. Sam Youngman's going to join us from Louisville, reporter about Rand Paul and his accusations of plagiarism. Oh my, Rand Paul, coming up next.
I wish I was in school.
If only I had a math test today.
Or a book report to give.
I wish I was in school.
I'll stay after class. I'll clean the chalkboard. I'll do extra homework. I'll skip recess.
I wish I was in school.
I wish I was in school.
I really wish I was in school.
School ends, but free lunches for your kids don't have to.
Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/summer meals for help. Together, we're feeding America.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. In the next hour, we're going to bounce down to Lexington, Kentucky. Hope to talk to Sam Youngman, political reporter there for the Herald-Leader, about Rand Paul and this charge of plagiarism and what impact that might have on his presidential hopes for 2016. And then Sabrina Siddiqui covers the Hill for the Huffington Post, will be along in studio. President Obama and the Vice President get the daily briefing today at 11 a.m. And then after meetings with senior advisors, the President will be honoring the Stanley Cup champions, the Blackhawks from Chicago, in the East Room of the White House. He loves welcoming these sports teams to the White House. Late this afternoon, the President and the Vice President meet with Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel. And then at 6:15 over at the St. Regis Hotel, the President will be speaking at an Organizing for Action, OFA, event at the St. Regis, taking some questions there. Jake Carney will take questions from us reporters in the press briefing at 12:45.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey tomorrow. A lot at stake, particularly for the Republican Party. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Happy Monday, November 4. And welcome to the Bill Press Show here on your local progressive talk radio station. Anywhere in this great land of ours, everywhere in this great land of ours, I should say. And on your video stream at TawkrTV. You can find that on your laptop, on your iPad, on your computer by just going to youtube.com/Tawker, as long as you spell it right, TawkrTV. TAWKR-TV. Good to have you with us today. Great to see you. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Got in a lot of relaxation, time with family and with friends, a little sports, and just recharging your batteries and ready to go because we got a lot to jump into here in this new week and this Monday, November 4. You can tell us what you think about what's going on by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Give us your comments on Twitter and on Facebook. Twitter at BP Show, Facebook, facebook.com/Bill Press Show. What do you know? The whole team here. Peter Ogburn, good morning, good morning.
Hey.
Alicia Cruz there. She's standing by to take your phone calls. Hi, Alicia. And Cyprian gets a big wave as well. Cyprian keeping us looking good on that video stream with the TriCaster and the video cams.
You got it.
Got it all together here this morning. There's a lot of politics over the weekend. Mitt Romney popped up on Meet the Press. Remember Mitt Romney? He was the Republican candidate for president in 2012, lost by 5 million votes, and we haven't heard from him since. But yesterday, David Gregory on Meet the Press had to ask him, okay, so who do you think are the front runners for 2016?
Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio. I mean, there's a long list of very capable people, but Chris Christie stands out as one of the very strongest lights in the Republican Party.
Paul Ryan, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie. No Ted Cruz. Where's Ted Cruz?
Weird.
Where's Rand Paul, for that matter?
Weird.
Right? Yeah. Well, Mitt, we know what you think, and we also know how much influence you will have and what really happens. Didn't mention himself. Didn't mention Sarah Palin.
No.
Didn't mention Rick Santorum. Didn't mention Michelle Bachmann either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, boy, we're anointing candidates right and left here today. Chuck Schumer was out in Iowa, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, and he said, hey, this is a done deal.
2016 is Hillary's time.
Wow.
Run, Hillary, run. If you run, you'll win, and we'll all win.
There you go. But, of course, that was the same thing that a lot of people said, including myself, in 2008. 2008 is Hillary's time. Barack Obama had other ideas. Yeah. Coming up, we're going to jump down to Lexington, Kentucky. to talk about Rand Paul and the plagiarism charge with Sam Youngman from the Lexington Herald-Leader. And then Sabrina Siddiqui from Huffington Post will join us in studio here to talk about what we can expect on Capitol Hill this week. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. It is Monday. So how did the weekend box office fare? Well, number one was Ender's Game, the teen sci-fi movie, brought in $28 million, a very disappointing $28 million for a big budget action flick like that. Number two was Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa, just behind it with $20.5 million.
Who would go see a movie with that title?
Interesting to note, by the way, that the new Marvel comic book movie, Thor, The Dark World, opens later on this week here in America, but it opened overseas this weekend, and it pulled in $109.4 million just over this weekend alone. So you can expect that it's going to have a pretty big opening here.
Well, these are the movies that just came out. How about the movies that have been out there? Are they still holding up?
Gravity is still at number 5. They brought in $13.1 million this weekend, so it's still sort of kicking around there. Yeah.
And the Tom Hanks movie, the pirate.
Captain Phillips. That's not the top 5. No, I'm sorry, it's not the top 5 for this weekend. These are just this weekend. Yeah. So, assault with meat in tube form. When you enter a sporting event, Bill, you might not know this, but if you go to a baseball stadium and if you get hit with a bat or a ball or anything like that, the team is not liable to help cover any injuries that you sustain. You are literally taking your life into your own hands. But does that continue on when a mascot or someone else from the team throws giveaways into the crowd? One man doesn't think so. He went to a Kansas City Royals game, and when the mascot threw a hot dog into the crowd, it hit the man in the eye, and he had to have surgery to fix it. And he's now suing the Royals for reimbursement to cover those surgeries. They're trying to say, look, when you come to a sporting event, when things fly into the stands, you're sort of taking that risk. He's saying this wasn't a ball or a bat, it was a hot dog.
I mean, I'm almost tempted to wear a hard hat when I go to a baseball game, right?
Yeah, I mean,
everybody runs. A foul ball comes in their territory. They try to grab it.
You duck.
No, I duck.
Yeah. And the late game in the NFL last night was the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. The Colts won that game 27-24, but a very scary moment at halftime when the when the teams were going back to the locker room. Houston Texans head coach Mark Kubiak collapsed on the sideline and
I've seen that
had
video.
To be taken out by a stretcher. Here's what it sounded like on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Mark Vandermeer with that call.
An evening of great celebration has turned into one of great concern here. Halftime at Reliant Stadium with the Texans leading the Colts 21-3. Gary Kubiak has been taken off the field on a stretcher.
He was taken off. They are saying it wasn't a heart attack, but they're looking to see what it might be.
He just sort of... I don't know, what was he doing on the field anyhow?
It was halftime, so it was one of these things where they're sort of going back into the locker room.
See him,
he just dropped.
He just dropped, right, walking along. Pretty scary. Yeah, so there was a lot of political news over the weekend and important races tomorrow in Virginia and in New Jersey. In New Jersey, of course, it's Governor Chris Christie running for re-election against Democratic challenger Barbara Buono. Great candidate. Chris Christie seems to have the edge. In Virginia, it is Democratic candidate, open seat, Terry McAuliffe up against Republican Ken Cuccinelli. The most recent polls have shown Terry McAuliffe with a comfortable advantage that is buttressed by this morning. The PPP poll has Terry McAuliffe up by 7 points. The Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor and Democratic candidate for attorney general are also up in the polls. It could be a clean sweep there among the top 3 or the 3 statewide offices for the Democrats in Virginia. And on the other political news, Senator Rand Paul, who, of course, is very eager to present himself as a candidate for the Republican nomination for president in 2016, is in a little bit of hot water over charges of plagiarism. Sam Youngman, a good friend of ours, often in studio here when he was with The Hill and then with Reuters, is now the chief political reporter for the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader, joining us on our newsline this morning. Sam, how are you?
Bill, it's great to be with you, man. I'm doing great.
All right. You made it down to Lexington, Kentucky. We were here at your farewell party in Washington, D.C. What's it like to be back home?
I tell you, I don't think I've stopped smiling since I got home. I will say this though. If it weren't for all the nice manners and the beautiful scenery, I tempted to think I was still in Washington, given the shutdown and the role of Kentucky's 2 senators in it.
Oh yeah, right. Do you miss Washington?
I haven't been gone long enough to miss Washington, but I will say I miss my friends a great deal.
All right. Well, we miss you too. So here it is. So Rand Paul, he gets out there, he writes a lot of articles, he gives a lot of speeches, and it turned out that various people have reported, BuzzFeed, Rachel Maddow's been on this, Associated Press, that he lifted some stuff from Wikipedia, from some different movies, Gattaca, and other people's writings, and used them in his speeches without telling people who he was quoting. How serious is this, do you think? Is it real, and how serious?
I think it's real, and it's not going away. If anything else, I think we're seeing it's gaining traction. I think my question is who's it real to? I think to people who don't like Rand Paul, this is big news, but they weren't going to like him anyway. I think the conservative movement that put him into office, that has really, I think, thrust him into the national spotlight. Getting exposed by Rachel Maddow or by BuzzFeed, it's more of a badge of honor for Rand than anything. The problem for Rand is, he's been trying to grow his base beyond that Tea Party movement. And to do so, he has to get out of this sort of, this box he's been put into that makes him described as crazy. This makes it easier for independents to put him back into that box.
Yeah. Well, immediately brought to my mind Joe Biden, his first run for president, 1988, and he was telling a wonderful story about his family and how much it meant to him. And it turned out that he was quoting word for word a speech that Neil Kinnock, British member of Parliament, had been giving, and without giving credit to Neil Kinnock, and that knocked Joe Biden out of the race in '88.
It's remarkable how differently we process news, just 20 years later.
Right,
and especially when you consider Vice President, then Senator Biden had attributed those quotes to Mr. Kinnock every time until then. Mm-hmm. It really is. I think we had more time to process and really sort of stew over news like that back in 87, 88. Whereas now we have such a high metabolism for news. This kind of stuff seems to go in one ear and out the other. The problem for Rand Paul is that the dam has burst. Now it's almost every day since since Rachel Maddow first broke the news. Every day since we're seeing somebody else do it. Rand Paul has been off the radar screen for a long time. It's helped him maneuver in ways that other people can't. And now the spotlight is very much on him, and he's going to be watched, and he's going to be every word he says is going to be parsed. And this is a new world for him.
Do you find
see how he handles it?
Yeah. Do you find in Kentucky the people of Kentucky give a rat's ass about this?
Nope, not one bit. That's about the simple truth. Again, it goes. It mirrors what you see on the national level, whereas people that don't like him weren't going to like him anyway. People that do like him, they just don't feel like this is. They don't feel like this is a legitimate hit. Mm-hmm. I was with him in Eastern Kentucky a little over a week ago. We made 5 stops. One of the poorest parts of the country, and everywhere we went, it was a lot like Iowa. But with mountains, people were waiting outside diners to see him and to encourage him to run in 2016. So he's got a lot of local star power.
Yeah. Well, now the question is, what is Rand Paul going to do about this? And I don't know, Sam. It's pretty dangerous down there in Kentucky. Here's what Rand Paul said he would like to do. He made this point with George Stephanopoulos yesterday on This Week.
I take it as an insult, and I will not lie down and say people can call me dishonest, misleading, or misrepresenting. I have never intentionally done so. And like I say, if dueling were legal in Kentucky, if they keep it up, it'd be a duel challenge. But I can't do that because I can't hold office in Kentucky.
Sam, they're still fighting duels down in Kentucky?
I mean, I immediately, to be such an original guy, it's amazing how often he makes me think of other people. That one immediately made me think of Zell Miller. Remember Zell yelling at Chris Matthews, face red, if I could challenge you to a duel. And
that was Chris Matthews, right?
Yeah, that was in 2004.
God, that's so funny.
It was a great Saturday Night Live sketch with Will Forte as Zell Miller. Obviously Rand didn't have the red face Zell Miller did, but yeah, no. A friend of Rand's, I was talking to him about this yesterday. He's like, he's just demonstrating local Kentucky knowledge because he's right. Our state constitution explicitly says you have to pledge to have never engaged or challenged somebody to a duel to serve. But and maybe he was just showing off some Kentucky knowledge.
Well, maybe that's just for statewide races, but not for federal races. I'm not. Maybe it doesn't cover United States senators. I don't know.
But Bill, it doesn't help.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't help. The thing about it is, and this is what I don't understand. It's so easy. We all quote people in speeches and articles, right? It's so easy just to say, as so-and-so said, right? Or as they said in the movie Gattaca, boom, 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 right? It's no big deal.
Well, and that's the argument Rand Paul's been trying to make, I think, somewhat defensively and counterproductively, is that, hey, he attributed those quotes to Gattaca. What he's not attributing is to Wikipedia. And his argument being, well, that's secondary source material. Well, maybe so, but it's still, it's still word for word, and it's something that academics and journalists are going to continue to find odious. But truth be told, those aren't really two audiences he's trying to win over.
Hey, just about out of time, but I got to ask you quickly. So, what's the status with Mitch McConnell down there? Does he have a serious Tea Party challenge?
I think he's creating one. We're very. This is it's something about Kentucky and civil wars. We just can't seem to avoid them. Mitch McConnell has basically declared war on these Tea Party groups like the Senate Conservative Fund, and it looks like they're going to give him one.
They're going to get, so whether he wants one or not, he's got it. All right. Hey, Sam, good to touch base with you again. Thank you so much.
It's great to hear from you, Bill.
Keeps you close to home here. Sam Youngman, now the senior political reporter for the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader. You can follow him at kentucky.com.
Bill, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
This is the Bill Press Show. On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Sabrina Siddiqui from Huffington Post joins us in the next segment. Talk about news of the day here from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. One thing not many people are talking about today, and we should be talking about, is what happened at LAX on Friday morning. Particularly struck me for two reasons. One is because LAX, having come from Los Angeles, lived in Los Angeles for so long, I know that airport like the back of my hand. I know every one of those terminal buildings and been in and out of there so many times. It's very familiar to me. And secondly, because the shooter, the killer, actually graduated from my high school in Wilmington, Delaware, Salesianum High School. Clearly, he didn't learn anything from that great institution, the 4 years he spent there. Great school run by a great organization, the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. But that hit me home as well. The mayor of Los Angeles identified the 23-year-old suspect who graduated from Sally's in 2008.
The suspect has been identified as Paul Anthony Ciancia, 23, a resident of Los Angeles.
And it might have been a lot worse, Garcetti pointed out, because he not only had an assault rifle, he had plenty of ammunition.
There was additional rounds that this gunman had. And the fact that these officers were able to neutralize the threat as they did, there were more than 100 more rounds that could have literally killed everybody in that terminal.
But the question I have this morning is why? Why should anybody, not just somebody who's obviously got a lot of mental problems like this kid, why should anybody be able to walk into a gun store and buy an assault rifle? There is no excuse for that, no defense for these weapons to be in circulation. None, period,
This
no way.
is the Bill Press Show. On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it. 33 minutes after the hour. Here we go on a Monday, November 4. Welcome back to The Bill Press Show here on your local progressive talk radio station. And those of you who want to see what we all look like, remember you can follow the video stream on TawkrTV. You just go to youtube.com/TawkrTV and you can listen on the radio and watch in, look in at the same time and see that we are joined now in studio by Sabrina Siddiqui. She covers the Hill for Huffington Post. Good friend of the program. It's always good to have you back, Sabrina. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Everything good?
Yes,
have a
everything's
good weekend?
Great. Weekend was good. It's always too quick, but
yeah. Well, we're
this is like Christmas for us because we gain an hour. You know, we get up so damn early.
Yeah, so that
this is so
extra
nice.
That extra hour did really help us.
I felt it this morning. It was good.
And we are we're pushing for the 3-day weekend, don't you think?
I was pushing more for the 3-day work week.
Oh, okay.
You said Friday and Monday are both a problem while we were chatting before this.
Yeah.
And I agree. We should just work like Congress does Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, Congress, but they really only work Wednesday because they don't come in till late Tuesday and they leave early Thursday, right? Oh my God! But so the House is out this week, which will make your job a little bit easier. The Senate, however, is still here with a. Let's start there. A big vote scheduled on the Employee Non-Discrimination Act, or so-called ENDA, which would do what, and what are its chances?
Well, it would prohibit workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And it last came up for a vote about 17 years ago, I believe, or 16. It's been a long time, and it fell short of one vote at the time. It's, of course, more extensive now. It had a vote in the House in 2007, but that particular version did not have the same protections in place on the basis of gender identity. So there weren't transsexual protections in that version. And it looks like it will break a filibuster, a potential Republican filibuster, in terms of clearing the first procedural vote today. There are
Harry Reid is determined to have a vote and very supportive of getting it passed.
Yes, today is the first procedural vote just to proceed to debate, and every single Senate Democrat supports it. And then they have two Republican co-sponsors, Mark Kirk of Illinois and Susan Collins of Maine. And then they have two Republicans, Orrin Hatch and Lisa Murkowski, who voted out of committee in July. So then it's assumed they will also vote for it on the floor. And Rob Portman, of course, who came out for gay marriage after he learned his son was gay, he said he's inclined to vote for it. He's basically keeping a little guarded, but he's expected to vote. And they would probably only need one more vote after that. If even, and they're expected to get some. So we'll see how it goes in terms of final passage. The other question, of course, is what happens when it goes over to the House.
Yeah, well, with the House Republican caucus, don't expect much, but it would be sad indeed if this did not get through the Senate, particularly in this day and age. And interestingly, this vote comes today on the very day when a member of Congress, Mike Michaud from Maine, came out as a gay man. He's running for governor in Maine, and he came out, and so for one more member of Congress to affirm he or she is openly gay, and then for the Senate not to end discrimination against people based on their sexual orientation would be strange.
It would be very strange. And I think earlier when the Supreme Court was considering those landmark gay marriage cases or rulings, you did have a couple of Republicans in the Senate come out in favor of gay marriage. It wasn't just Rob Portman. But so that kind of also will help, because if they were supportive of gay marriage, this is just basic non-discrimination in the workplace. This isn't even going that far. So it should pass. People are very hopeful. Activists are very hopeful. They feel that it should be a no-brainer. Of course, it's sad we're actually debating this. But to get it through the Senate even would be huge.
And I guess the only argument that I've heard against it is a phony one anyhow, but they say, well, it would force some churches to hire, who don't support gay rights, to hire people who are gay. It doesn't force anybody to hire anybody.
Extensive protections for religious institutions, as does everything. They said the same thing about the birth control mandate. How many exemptions have they granted it under the ACA, Affordable Care Act, for not even just churches and religious institutions, but large employers who are the owner or the CEO is Catholic or a staunch, religious or person of faith, and then they've granted exemptions to those people. I think it was at Domino's. What large retail pizza chain was it?
I think it was Papa John's.
Papa John's.
I
mean, they're all equally as terrible.
That's not even a religious. Well, that's not anywhere close. So clearly, this is not something that people should be raising as an objection when, time and again, on different pieces of legislation, they have shown they are willing to protect religious freedoms and religious liberties.
Sabrina Siddiqui covers the Hill for the Huffington Post. Now, Senator Dianne Feinstein on one of the Sunday shows yesterday saying that she totally supports the review that the White House is doing of our intelligence agencies and the way we gather intelligence, and particularly the way we spy on world leaders, friendly world leaders like Angela Merkel. But she also thinks there should be such a review in the Congress, leading to some reforms of NSA or some restraints on NSA. Is that going to happen?
I would say that there will be some symbolic review, perhaps, at this point, because there's a growing amount of frustration. Reforms would be minimal. There were some that the president called for to the FISA court that determines or signs off on all of these programs, something like a privacy advocate, something that was pretty nominal and not actually, more symbolic, I should say, than it was actually changing the nature of the programs. He made that call in a press conference before August recess, and then we never heard of it again. Granted, there was a shutdown, and they always move on to the new issue of the day. But this spying on foreign leaders has been particularly embarrassing, mostly because these are friends of the United States. So what you will have is, for example, someone like Dianne Feinstein, who's been a staunch defender of these. When you've lost her, you know you're doing something wrong. And that does help, because you have the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee saying this has to change. Something has to change. I still am, you had them, I'm still skeptical, because you had the top intelligence officials, Keith Alexander and company, testify before Congress last week and defend not just the programs as they have thus far, but even the spying on foreign allies. They didn't actually think there was anything wrong with what they had done. If anything, their response was something to the effect of, they do it too, number one. And number two, this helps us know how they think and how they approach various issues. Which I'm sure you can get that any other way than having to tap into their phone conversations. That is not why they're tapping into the Angela Merkel's phone, to know how she thinks.
Right. But I think the one unanswered question, which to me is the most important of all, is who makes this decision? And we have been pushing at the White House with Jay Carney to try to get an answer to that question, and cannot get an answer to that question. The White House is all over the place. They say, well, the president is obviously in charge, but at the same time, the president didn't know that we were tapping Angela Merkel's phone until last summer, right? So somebody made the decision, a program that started, and by the way, that's important to point out, it started under George W. Bush, but it didn't end with Barack Obama. Somebody made the decision, if not him, who, to continue the program and to expand it. and pick up some other people.
Yes. And to many people, it's very troubling that he didn't actually know. How did the president?
I don't find it comforting that he didn't know.
Of course not. And people have questioned if that's accurate. I think at this point they know better than to lie about whether or not he knew, because it's so easy to find out if they're especially with the sort of nature of these leaks. 2 weeks later, the media would find out he actually knew all along. They're probably being honest with that response. But then why does the president of the United States not know that we are tapping into the cell phone of the leader of Germany, with whom he has until now shared a pretty it's been a pretty cooperative relationship. They're not close, but there hasn't been friction. And
he went to he didn't give her a back rub like George Bush did, right? But he went to Berlin in June, and he stood alongside of her at the Brandenburg Gate. And to think that the president of the United States is standing alongside of her, not knowing that we were tapping her phone, I find it. I can't. I find it hard to fathom. And then the Pope, we learned, right, that they were listening along the calls from that residence where he was living. And then I think it was the New York Times or one of the papers over the weekend reported that the president had a meeting with Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, in the Oval Office. And before that meeting, the president knew everything that the Secretary General was going to ask. He knew he had read his talking points that he'd been given for the meeting and everything, because they were tapping Ban Ki-moon's phone.
I know.
I mean, is there nobody sacred? No, obviously not, right?
Apparently not. And I think that people at this point, it's unfortunate that Americans get more upset when it's happening in their households. So for them, it's not as tangible when you're spying on a foreign leader, but it's embarrassing. And I think they're starting to note that the international reputation of the United States is taking a tremendous hit because of the scope of the surveillance and the reach of the surveillance. And it won't look good in the long run. It looks very hypocritical, too, because this country has been very forceful on that idea of civil liberties, often lecturing other governments, and only to find out that not only are they tapping into their own citizens, but they also to other leaders. Like you said, no one is sacred. Possibly the Vatican. They tried to deny it, but who knows? They could deny it, and probably it's still true.
The other big issue on the Hill, of course, is continued angst among Democrats and angry criticism among Republicans over problems with the Affordable Care Act. Sabrina Siddiqui here from Huffington Post. We'll get into that when we come back. Join us anytime, 866-55-PRESS.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Monday morning. Sabrina Siddiqui with us from Huffington Post. Nice of you to start the week with us this morning, Sabrina. Thank you. Off to a good start here for this week, huh? Yeah, indeed. What's going to happen? Do you expect more? So we got two fronts with the Affordable Care Act. One is continuing problems with the website. They've shut it down. My understanding is last night. It may be able to be back up today, but they keep shutting it down to do some fixes. And they've given themselves as a November 30 as a deadline to get the website fixed. And then compounding that, we've got the problem where a certain number of Americans are, in fact, who have health insurance on their own, bought it on their own, are going to lose those plans because they don't meet the test of Obamacare, and they're going to have to buy another plan. And unless they qualify for federal subsidy, some of them may end up paying more. Some will pay less. But you got that problem as well. What's going to happen on the Hill? They're going to delay it. They're going to kill it. They're going to have more hearings, or what do you think?
Well, they won't be successful in killing it or delaying it, certainly. I think...
haven't been so far.
They haven't been so
They
far.
certainly tried.
They tried. Honestly speaking, I think with Republicans, especially because of how they went about it, shutting down the government over the health care law, they've lost their standing to challenge even elements of the law that perhaps they would have been able to get some Democrats on board with in any other venue if they had just been patient.
Yeah, the shutdown really...
They could have looked for a delay after they resolve funding for the government and after they raise the debt limit. It wouldn't mean they would get a one-year mandate delay, let's be clear. Yeah. The administration has adamantly ruled that out. But they could have certainly looked for other fixes. But the problem is that Republicans don't actually want to fix the law. This really is for them continues to be their primary political target. And this is all about 2014. It's all about proving that this law is a disaster, although they still haven't been able to make the case that it is. I think in the longer scheme of things, this looks bad for the administration, of course, in the short term. And it will be a problem for them if they can't get the website up and running. Certainly, people do feel misled by the fact that they didn't know some of them would have to change their plan or potentially lose their plan and get one through the exchanges that they weren't planning on doing. But at the end of the day, in the longer scheme of things, I think that as long as they are able to get past these initial few months and the law is implemented as it was intended, that's where Republicans haven't figured out how to address that, because the law isn't going anywhere. Eventually, it's going to work.
Yeah,
it's
here to stay.
It's here to stay, and it's a comprehensive law. It was expected that the first few months, even the first year, potentially, maybe the first couple of years, will be rocky. That's just the reality when you're doing something this sweeping, a landmark piece of healthcare.
It was true of Social Security. It was true of Medicare. It's true of Obamacare. The New York Times reports, and I think the administration has not done a good enough job of getting this word out, is that so these people who are losing their plans, right? These are plans that weren't worth a damn to begin with, right? They were plans that certainly did not meet the test of basic quality care, which the Affordable Care Act sets out. The Times yesterday in its editorial pointed out that some of these plans had deductibles as high as $10,000 or $25,000, required large copays after that, and some of them didn't even cover hospital care. So these people had a worthless piece of paper, and the insurance companies have to drop those, and so they have to get another plan through the exchange, and with the exchange, subsidies are available for a lot of these people, so it doesn't mean that they'll necessarily pay less.
Absolutely, and
pay more.
Pay more. Right. It just depends, of course, and that's kind of the way that health insurance works anyway. That's another argument that's been brought up. Every year, an insurance company will make changes to your plan. They will raise your premium. They might say now that they're offering a new plan that offers more coverage. Perhaps they'll say now your deductible might go down a little bit, but that means you'll have to pay more by the month. There are always changes every year to people's insurance plans, whether they like it or not, and the premiums do go up. It doesn't mean that, of course, it's ideal for people who might not need a lot of the coverage provided under Obamacare, but that's also sort of how it works. There's a lot of stuff in your insurance plan that you might not need. It sounds like for some people, what they had was the bare minimum plan that they could have in order to just go to the doctor, in order to just possibly be prescribed medicine and have some sort of copay rather than paying out of pocket. But you have a couple of interviews you've seen in recent weeks where people are upset because they'll say things like, well, I don't need hospital care. I don't need mental health coverage. I don't need prenatal. And sure, you might not. If you're a male and you're not married, you might not need prenatal. You might not need mental health coverage, but there are other elements there that will be worth it, especially if you didn't even have hospital care covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a classic case. You don't know what you're going to need.
Exactly.
That's what health insurance is all about. That's why it's got to cover the ballpark, because you never know. You never know. Sabrina Siddiqui, kind of a light week maybe on the Hill, except for the Senate. But at any rate, thanks for starting it off with us. Thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
You can follow Sabrina Siddiqui and all of our good colleagues at Huffington Post, of course, at HuffingtonPost.com. We're back in a minute with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show. parting shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, here we go again. Another shooting, another attack with an assault weapon, this time at LAX. And the worst part is, nobody seems to care. There is no way that this young man, who was clearly mentally disturbed, should have been allowed to purchase an assault rifle and all those rounds of ammunition. Yet he did, and he used it to carry out what he thought was a suicidal protest against big government in general and TSA in particular. Yet Friday's event got very little media attention. After all, only one person was killed. And some people said, what's the big deal after LAX? About LAX, after Columbine and Virginia Tech and Aurora and Newtown and the Navy Yard. Well, here's the big deal. Americans should never accept the private ownership of weapons of war and their use as instruments of mass murder in public places. I never will, and I hope you don't either. Screw the NRA. We can't let them decide this issue. We must get back to banning the private purchase of assault weapons, period. Let's hope we can do it. Have a good day, folks. See you back here again tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.